students, it's Ma'am Lynsel Papuran delivering you another package of educational opportunity in the field of research. How are you today? I hope you are doing well and staying healthy, so together we can fully equip ourselves with knowledge and skills needed in crafting our own research study. Before we start, here's a list of what you are expected to develop at the end of this session. First, describe sampling procedure and sample. Second, distinguish between probability sampling and non-probability sampling. And third, differentiate the types of non-probability sampling. To begin our lesson, I have prepared an activity for you. These are the directions for our first activity. Unscramble the following words. With each scrambled word are pictures that will help you guess the correct answer. Let the activity begin. What do you think is the word that best describes these pictures? Yes, that's correct. The answer is population. What about this set? What word do these pictures represent? Very good. The answer is group. This time, the pictures contain words. What human aspect do they belong to? Do not forget to look at the jumbled word. Impressive! The answer is characteristic. Alright, this is the final word for you to guess. What do you think is it? That's right. The answer is selection. Did you get all the correct answers? If not, that's okay. Don't feel bad because making a mistake is just normal. Now you might ask me, what is the relevance of our previous activity to our lesson for today? Do you still remember the answers? Allow me to define all of them before we proceed to the main purpose of this video. Take note of these words and their meanings because you will encounter them later in the discussion. First is population. Population is the total number of people or animals living in an area. Second is group. If we are going to talk about population of people, group pertains to a number of individuals having some unifying relationship. Characteristic. A characteristic is a distinguishing trait, quality, or property of an individual or group of individuals. And last is the word selection. It is the action of carefully choosing someone or something as being the most suitable. For today's lesson, we will be learning about sampling, specifically non-probability sampling. Now, what is sampling? Sampling is the selection of the group that you will actually collect data from for your research. Sampling allows you to test a hypothesis about the characteristics of a population. When you conduct research about a group of people, it is rarely possible to collect data from every person in that group. Instead, you select a sample. Now, what is a sample? The sample is the group of individuals who will actually participate in your research. This group is the result of the sampling process. If the research being conducted is quantitative, the sample is called the respondents. Whereas if it is qualitative, we call our sample informants. Looking at the illustration, it clearly shows that sample is taken from population, and the process or action of selecting the sample is called sampling. The sample is now the people you have selected to participate in your research study. They are basically the ones who will give answers to your research questions and will help you achieve your research objectives. Types of sampling methods. Probability sampling. This involves random selection, allowing you to make strong statistical inferences about the whole group or the population. This type of sampling is used in quantitative research because each member of the population has a chance of being part of a research study. This means that characteristics are not the basis for selecting the sample. Non-probability sampling. This employs selection based on the subjective judgment of the researcher rather than random selection. This sampling method depends heavily on the expertise of the researchers. Unlike probability sampling, characteristics being studied are the basis for selecting the sample. It is carried out by observation, which is why it is widely used in qualitative research. Our lesson doesn't end here. Both probability and non-probability samplings have their own types as well. They are created to help you choose a more specific sampling type that best corresponds to your research study. But since Practical Research 1 is solely focused on qualitative research, I think it will be more appropriate if we discuss first the types of non-probability sampling. Alright, so let's proceed to types of non-probability sampling. Convenience sampling. It is a non-probability sampling technique where samples are selected from the population only because they are accessible to the researcher. Researchers choose these samples just because they are easy to recruit. Researchers use convenience sampling based on factors such as nearness of the researcher to the target sample, and close relationship of the researcher with the target sample. Convenience sampling is known as the most common non-probability sampling method because of its speed, cost-effectiveness, and accessibility of the target samples. Voluntary response sampling. Similar to a convenience sampling, a voluntary response sample is mainly based on ease of access. Instead of the researcher choosing participants and directly contacting them, people volunteer themselves. Voluntary response samples are always at least somewhat biased, as some people will inherently be more likely to volunteer than others. Quota sampling. Quota sampling is defined as a non-probability sampling method in which researchers create a sample involving individuals that represent a population. Researchers choose these individuals according to specific traits or qualities, example, age or gender. Depending on the type of research, the researcher can apply quotas based on the sampling frame. It is not necessary for the researcher to equally divide the target number of sample. He or she divides the quotas as per his or her need. Purposive sampling. In the judgmental sampling method, researchers select the samples based purely on their knowledge and credibility. In other words, researchers choose only those people who they think are fit to participate in the research study. If the topic is meant to seek answers from a particular group of individuals sharing the same characteristic or experience, others from the population who do not possess the said traits may not have the chance to join the research study. If they do not meet the criteria set by the researcher, it means that they are incapable of giving accurate answers to the research questions. Finally, snowball sampling. This type of sampling is called snowball sampling because, in theory, once you have the ball rolling, it picks up more snow along the way and becomes larger and larger. Snowball sampling helps researchers find a sample when they are difficult to locate. Researchers use this technique when the sample size is small and not easily available. This sampling system works like a referral program. Once the researchers find suitable subjects, he asks them for assistance to seek similar subjects to form a considerably good-sized sample. To fully understand the difference of the non-probability sampling types, let's use them in concrete examples. In our first example, let's see how the topic challenges in modular learning applies to the different non-probability sampling types. First, we have convenience. As a researcher, you are collecting opinions from your classmates about challenges in modular learning. This becomes convenient because the researcher solicits opinions coming from his classmates. There's easy access because these people are closer to him than others. Next is voluntary response. While collecting opinions from your classmates about challenges in modular learning, students from different classes unexpectedly join your research. This shows how voluntary sampling takes place because there is willingness in others to participate in the research study. Next is quota. You are collecting opinions about the challenges in modular learning from 20 male and 20 female students of every class in your school. The researcher in this situation sets a sample size or a total number of informants by himself based on what he thinks is needed by his research. In purposive sampling, you are collecting opinions about challenges in modular learning from students with failing grades. In this example, we can clearly see that there is a purpose set by the researcher. Since the researcher wishes to collect opinions from only those students with failing grades, then it means he will not include those students with average or high grades. Lastly, we have snowball. You are collecting opinions about challenges in modular learning from teenage mothers, but you only found one, so you ask help from your only informant to find more teenage mothers who are currently attending school. In this example, the researcher encountered a difficulty in finding more possible samples or informants, so he used the referral method or the snowball sampling. With the help of his first informant, there is a chance he can find more participants for his study. Example number 2. Experiences about bullying. In convenient sampling, you interviewed teenagers from your barangay who have experiences about bullying, but you chose to interview your friends first before interviewing those you do not know. This example is more convenient than the first one because the researcher did not only consider his nearness to the informants but also his close relationship with them. Voluntary response sampling. You interviewed teenagers from your barangay who have experiences about bullying, and many more got interested, so they willingly participated in your research. Just like in the first example, there is volunteerism happening in the process of data gathering. Third is we have quota. You decide to conduct a research about bullying and set the number of informants to 10, each between the ages of 16 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40, and 41 to 50. If the first researcher used gender to set a sample size, this one here used age. If you could still remember from our discussion, age can also be used as basis in setting a number for your informants. Next is purposive. You interviewed teenagers belonging to the LGBTQ community and their experiences about bullying. If you are going to examine the situation, the only purpose of the researcher was to interview those belonging in the LGBTQ community. He probably had observed that it was the group mostly affected by bullying. In this case, others who do not belong to the LGBTQ community were excluded. And then we have snowball. Your goal was to interview teenagers who became drug transporters due to bullying, but only found one, so you asked him to refer you to other possible subjects. Here is another situation wherein the researcher found it hard to look for more probable samples. Hence, snowball sampling was used. Here's an additional information to the examples I have given you. The type of non-probability sampling technique you are going to use is dependent on the topic you have chosen to study, which means that you really have to think hard about it before you start. Quick decision making without looking into the possibilities and consequences you may encounter during the process may hinder you from finishing your research study. A little advice: do not formulate a topic that needs answers from people with nearly impossible situations. To sum it up, sampling is a method of selecting individuals called the sample, or a group of people taken from a population that you have chosen to participate in your research study. Sampling is divided into two, and these are probability sampling, a random selection of sample used in quantitative research, and non-probability sampling, a non-random selection of sample used in qualitative research. Non-probability sampling is also divided into 5 types, and these are convenience, voluntary response, quota, purposive, and snowball. This time, let's test how well you have understood our lesson by doing this simple activity. Read each research situation critically. Identify the type of non-probability sampling used in each item. Let's start. Anna, a humanities and social sciences student, conducted a research study about the struggles of disabled students in their municipality. What do you think is the type of non-probability sampling Anna used? Very good! The answer is purposive. Richard, a grade 12 technical, vocational, and livelihood student, observed that their class got the lowest average during the mathematics test. So he decided to interview his classmates one by one about their study habits in the subject. Can you guess the non-probability sampling type Richard used? That's correct. He used convenience sampling. Number 3. Linda, a senior high school graduating student, was told by her research teacher that the informants of her study were not enough. She then continued the interview process to gather sufficient data. To her surprise, many students approached her for the interview. What sampling did Linda use? That's right! The answer is voluntary response sampling. Barbara, a grade 11 student who didn't have any experience in research, chose to study the culture of prostitutes in their place. During data gathering, she encountered difficulties in finding potential informants, so she asked her one and only informant to help her in searching for more. What sampling did Barbara use? Impressive! The answer is snowball sampling. Here's the last situation for this activity. Liam, a grade 12 general academic student, thought about the 1-month data gathering period given to them by the research teacher. He set his total sample size to 50 based on the needs of his study. What type of non-probability sampling Liam used? That's correct. Liam used quota sampling. For your assignment, answer this question. How do researchers collect qualitative data? That's the end of today's class. I hope you learned something from our discussion. Thank you very much and see you again on our next research expedition. Bye!